Hi everyone, and welcome to today's session focusing all around improving your experience as an admin. For those of you who I have not yet met, my name is Stephanie Valenzano and I'm a content manager here at SAP Concur. Now, as you can see, co-presenting with me is the fabulous Stacey Sipes. So Stacey, off to you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Yes, Stacey Sipes, Senior Customer Success Manager here at SAP Concur. I have the privilege and pleasure of working with you, our customers, to ensure that we are driving value within your platform and we're working together to drive further success. As Stephanie, I'm very excited today to share what we've prepared with you. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Stephanie to go over our agenda.
Awesome. So today we're going to go through some tips and best practices for really improving your experience as an administrator. And when Stacey and I were coming together and thinking of what configuration best practices are we going to share, we wanted to make it so that SAP Concur is really starting to do that heavy lifting for you. So with that being said, we have around 6 tips that we're going to go through today, and then we have around 2 tips on reporting. Then we're going to end our time together today with some resources that you can take away and use after today's session. Now, before we get going, there is something that I want to cover that's important, and it's basically going through what site edition you're on. Because some of the tips that both Stacey and I will be sharing today, navigating to those tips are different depending on whether or not you're on the standard edition or if you're on the professional edition. So if your expense settings looks like the picture or screenshot on the left-hand side, that means that you are on our standard edition. So it's going to have these nice tiles there for you. And if your expense setting looks like the one to the right, almost like a Webster's dictionary, basically this means that you are on our professional edition. Now, I just want you all to know this, keep this in mind for our presentation, write it down somewhere, or even take a screenshot of the screen that you see. But with that, let's pass it off to Stacey to kick it off with our tips.
Yes, today we are going to start off with one of our easy configuration updates. And our first tip revolves around the processor tool and making it easier to see additional report information. This tip will help you better utilize the processor tool. It is a great one to see historical reports and information at the report level. So to begin, we're going to click on the Home dropdown in the upper left-hand corner of your screen, then click on Expense in the Administration column. Once in your expense landing page, click on the processor, then processor or process reports. In the process reports screen, you can easily add columns to see additional details about expense reports. Anyone with the expense processor permission will be able to access this screen. Now, simply click on the list settings and a box will pop up with columns that you can add to your processor view. The list settings screens will show you all the fields that are available to add to your processor view. For this example, you want to see which employee attached a receipt when a receipt is mandatory. So I'm selecting receipt image required and receipt image status. Once the fields you want are selected, click OK, and the fields will then be added to your view. As you can see here, the 2 selections I made are now listed on the right-hand side of your screen. Having this view allows for greater visibility at your fingertips, allowing you to easily review reports with increased efficiency and productivity.
Okay, so our next tip is all around catching duplicate expenses. So it's basically called the duplicate check feature. And what it will do is it's going to review all required fields on an expense and basically compare it to expenses either that are already submitted by that employee or even other employees and flag them for your organization. So a little fun fact here is that 10% of travelers at least submit one duplicate expense with an average amount of $40. So that's money that's being reimbursed that really isn't supposed to. So with that, for those folks who are on the standard edition, we are going to show you how to navigate and turn on this duplicate check feature. Professional, sit tight, we'll get to you soon. But for you standard folks out there, what you're going to do is you're going to go to that Home dropdown, and then you're going to go to your expense settings under Administration. From here, you're going to scroll down to the policy section, and once you're in the policy section, you're going to tap into expense compliance. Once you're in that expense compliance folder, you're going to want to make sure that you're under the compliance rules tab. And basically, there's going to be a simple setting for you to turn on here, or should I say, check in a checkbox that says flag potential duplicate expenses. And standard, folks, it's as simple as that. Your site's going to get going. It's going to begin to catch all those duplicate expenses that could potentially be slipping through the cracks. Okay, now it's time for professional users in the audience today. It's your turn to listen up, and I'm going to show you how to configure a duplicate check on your site edition. So same navigation here. You're going to want to go to your home drop-down, and then you're going to click into expense under administration. From here, you're going to navigate to the audit rules setting. And once you're in the audit rule setting, this can look quite overwhelming, but it is alphabetized. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to scroll down to the duplicate transaction check audit rule. And to see if it's turned on or not, on the right-hand side, you can see if it's activated. And what do we know? It's not. So let's go in and activate it together. So the obvious first step here is where it says activate, it's a drop-down. Select yes to get things rolling, and then click next. Now on the professional site, it's not just as easy as just turning on or just checking off a box. There's a lot more that's involved, and it's a lot more of a robust site. So there is a little bit more detail involved here. And on this slide, what you're going to see in front of you is a duplicate transaction variance percentage that you're able to choose from. And what that means is if your expense B's amount is within 1% of expense A's amount, that also means that it will still flag it as a duplicate transaction. So it doesn't necessarily need to be the exact same amount, but as long as it's in 1%, or whatever percentage you set this to. So now that you know how to turn on this simple configuration, let's take a look at what the end user sees. So now this is the end user's view. Once the end user creates a report and is about to submit it, they will have a notification letting them know that they have two expenses that look to be the same. Now this is where the employee can go in, maybe delete one of them, or if they simply just skip over this and they still click submit, the approver will then be notified and also get the same audit flags triggered here. And then they can send it back to the employee. So why should we turn this on? What's the benefit of this configuration? At the end of the day, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's catching all of those duplicate expenses that shouldn't be reimbursed. And the best part is your approvers don't need to catch it, your processors don't need to catch it. It's all done through the SAP Concur site.
That's a great tip, Steph, and it's one I share with my customers, especially those that don't have larger teams and don't have the bandwidth to audit every item. So now on to our next tip, which is to evaluate your email reminder configuration by updating your rules and email messaging. Here, SAP Concur is doing the heavy lifting to help ensure employees are creating their expense reports and submitting on time. For this, I'm going to show you how to enable the email reminder configuration. Starting with the standard edition, we will go through yours first. Again, we will click and navigate to that home dropdown and click into the expense and invoice settings. From here, we will click to go into the expense compliance tile. And if we scroll down to the bottom, we will click onto the last checkbox. In this example, by checking here, it allows an email to be sent to an employee when transactions are older than a predetermined amount of days. For this example, we decided to pick 14 days. Now, for those of you on the professional edition, similar to the standard customers, you will click into the home dropdown and click into expense under administration. From here, you will click into email reminders. And once you're in the email reminder setting, you can see on the right-hand side which email reminders are activated. To give you an idea on how to activate an email reminder, we are going to go into the first one called Overdue Expense Reports. So here in this example, you can see more information about when an email is triggered and the messaging around this notification. You can also personalize it, of course, to fit your organization's style and make it personal to you. So the value in email reminders is it can be sent to users to prompt certain actions, such as submit or approve reports. If in an end user's busy day, we know they get caught up in their daily tasks and jobs at hand. So this allows them to get the reminder and knock it out. And of course, the overall value in email reminders, which there are many, is it increases adoptions and, for the purposes of today's topic, efficiency. And as we move forward, we now want to discuss our tips for our more advanced admins. Leading us into this discussion, I'm going to turn it back over to Stephanie.
Thanks, Stacey. So our first tip in this advanced sort of intermediate section has to do with reconciling your corporate cards, because we all know what a pain that can be sometimes. So our tip here is to leverage one of our App Center partners called PivotEQ. And basically what PivotEQ does is it matches your credit card statements to your credit card charges. So basically up until this point, when a client has asked us how to reconcile their corporate cards, we probably have navigated you to our reporting module, made you go and pull a report called the expense accrual report, bring that out of SAP Concur, and then do some reconciling that way. It's pretty cumbersome and it's quite a long process, right? So PivotEQ is going to be your dream if this did speak to you, if this is your cumbersome task. So I'm going to show you how to find where PivotEQ is. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go into that home dropdown. We've been here before, but the difference is underneath applications, you will see the App Center link. So we're going to dive in there together. And once you're in the App Center, feel free to browse around, but for today, we're going to take a look at and search for PivotEQ in that search bar in that upper right-hand corner. Now, once it's popped up, we can simply click into that tile to get some more information about what PivotEQ does. But basically, couldn't speak there for a second, basically, PivotEQ is going to import both your credit card statement and your SAP Concur expense reports. And PivotEQ is going to bring this gorgeous dashboard together with your statement balance. It's going to show you what's been matched and unmatched from an expense report, as well as even still some that are in flux, so what's been unsubmitted and not approved as well within SAP Concur. So again, if credit card reconciliation is such a pain point for you, PivotEQ is really going to give you such a helping hand and eliminate such a cumbersome task for you.
I just learned a lot with that. That was a great tip, Stephanie. So our next tip is both beneficial for the end user and the administrator, or the approval. For our admins in the audience today, consider turning on the split expense approval feature. Now, depending on your Concur site, you may need to involve client support, but the split expense report feature lets approvers send one or more expenses back to the employee instead of the entire report. Now, again, we're going to go through what this looks like for both standard and professional users. Starting with the standard edition, you've seen this before, so on how to get to your expense settings from that home dropdown. Once you're in the expense settings, you are going to scroll down to the policy section and click into the expense compliance tile. From here, you are going to make sure you are in the compliance rules tab. And right at the top, you're going to click in a checkbox that you can activate that allows users to split expense reports. Very simple for the standard users. Now, for professional users. This is where you will need to involve client support unless you have the advanced configuration course completed. So for today's purposes, we will not go through how to activate the tip, but if it is of interest to you, please contact your customer support or stop by the Expert Center in the Fusion Pavilion. What we will do, though, for today is show you how it will look for an approver and an end user standpoint. Now, as you can see on the employee's expense report for the approver, there is an area that allows them to send back the expense report to the employee. Now, why enable it? As you can see here, the approver is able to add a reason for why the employee's expense report is being sent back. Also, it's easier for approvers because when the employee resubmits the expense report, they only have to look at the rejected expense line item. So it's not duplicating work, and they're not having to review the whole expense report again. A question we do get a lot from this tip is, does the rejected line item count against your expense report transaction? And the answer is yes. This will create a new expense report, but at the other end of it, it will reduce errors, duplication, and the potential risk of reduced compliance.
Okay, so our last tip of the day before we get into some reporting is for those of you out there that have a corporate card and have a corporate card supported feed with us here at SAP Concur. And basically our tip here is to look at coding your merchant categories. So if this is something that speaks to you, this is going to be a really great tip for SAP Concur to do that heavy lifting for two people. Your end users, as it's going to go in and help them create their expense reports by automatically filling in that expense type for them. And then from the admin side, because it's great, it helps to eliminate fraudulent charges, and it helps improve data accuracy because it's filling in the expense type for the employee. So for standard and professional folks, again, here it is going to be the same way to get to the merchant code mapping. So we're going to go together and do it. Underneath that home drop-down, under administration, you will dive into the tools setting. Now from here, both standard and professional folks, you can dive in to the company card setting. And you're going to want to make sure that you are under the merchant code mapping tab. And as you can see here on that left or right-hand side, all of the expense types that have or have not been mapped yet. So the merchant code mapping tool allows you to assign merchant category codes to expense types. So basically the mapping is used to automatically select a default expense type for the specific imported credit card transaction. Now, why is this important? Why is this something that you should enable? First and foremost, it helps with reducing risk by directly mapping the merchant code to the correct expense type. Again, and it eliminates that opportunity for human error and or confusion.
All right, now we move into the tip of reporting. You may be hearing a lot about reporting overall from your account team, right? And we know that reporting holds its weight in gold. There is so much information that it contains for you and your organization to review. So for reporting and how it correlates to easing the overall admin experience, we have pulled a couple examples, and I will turn it back over to Stephanie to share more with us.
Great. So our first report that we're going to start off with is pretty juicy. And it's basically the travel and expense overview report. So if you have both travel and expense, this is a great report for you as it combines both of that data together. So on the screen here, you will see a few different types of graphs and data points. This is not just what the report can show. It has so much more to it. I just took a few screenshots of what I thought I wanted to share with you today. But first and foremost, for admins who use Concur Expense, this report that is highlighted on screen, you can see the breakdown of your expense spend by month. So this is really great for budgeting purposes. You can see what your spend was last year, compare it to this year. You can start chipping away at maybe some areas of some spend that just wasn't needed or that you went over budget. As well as, it's not shown on screen here, but this report does show the number of submitted expenses you have on a monthly basis. Now, if you know how you're billed with us, either monthly, quarterly, or annually, you know that you have an allotted amount of expenses that you're allowed to submit during that billing period. So if you go over this, you will incur some overage charges. So this report also is able to pull your usage so you can begin to monitor where you're going over your expense report usage. Now, a tip here that I want to share with you, if you notice that you are going over your allotted tier quite frequently, maybe make it a company policy that employees are only allowed to submit 1 to 2 expense reports on a monthly basis if you find that there are submitting more than that. Another great area to look at here is the chart that's corporate card compliance. So again, for those of you who have a supported corporate card feed here with us, you can really get an understanding of what spend is coming through your corporate card and what spend isn't coming through it. Now, I do personally love corporate card feeds. If your organization does not have one, I would really highly recommend you speaking to your client success team about the feature functionalities of a corporate card. Now, I always tell clients that keeping your cash spend to a minimum is super important because cash spend is really untraceable, and statistically, a majority of cash spend is correlated to fraudulent charges. So something to keep in mind here when you see a high usage of cash coming through. Now, the last area that I want to touch on here is basically the approval aging amount. Now, as you can see here, it'll show you how long it takes an expense report to go through the approving workflow. And if you see that expenses are taking quite longer than 3 days, then Stacey here will show you a great report to really deep dive into where those bottlenecks are coming from an approver standpoint. So Stacey, kick it off with the last tip and report.
All right, so here the two major columns that I want to draw your eyes to are submission days, which shows the number of days between the date that the expense report was created by the employee and the date that the expense report was submitted. This is a great area to look because it helps identify which employees are taking longer to submit their expense report. In seeing this, it gives you the opportunity to, again, identify, reach out to the end user and understand why it may be taking them longer, and determine if there are any gaps or things they may not be understanding. It opens that line of communication. In one example, it could be taking them longer because they're waiting to upload their expenses after a long business trip. And with that, if it is the case, then make sure they know about the SAP Concur mobile app, especially if your organization has Expense-It, which allows them to easily load their expenses into anywhere on the go. The next area to look at is the approval days, which is basically the number of days it took for the report to be fully approved. With a high number of approval days, it could mean managers are struggling with the overall approval process. As we can see here, Joe's expense report took him 42 days to submit, and for the approvals, for the approver, it took 94 days. This begins to show where there may be bottlenecks in your workflow and how you can fix them. So next time you pull this report, ask yourself, are we aware of who may be struggling with the process? Have we set expectations for approval times? Do we have requirements in place for promptly submitting reports? And have we communicated to our end users and approvers? And just checking in to make sure everything is set up correctly in their profile. So in closing, this report allows SAP Concur to do that heavy lifting on your behalf, giving you the opportunity to understand trends, areas for improvement, and streamline the overall process.
All right, so before we let you go, we do have some resources that we want to share with you today, all around helping you as admins improve your experience. So the first admin resource here that we have is our link to the training toolkit, so you can access it. You can even bookmark it. It's a hyperlink, so go ahead and save it on your web browser. The next resource that we have there is the on-demand training, admin training series, which is an online training series. You can sign up when we have live webcasts or even look at the on-demand ones that we have recorded in the past. The next resource we have for you here is the link to our tips and tricks document. So if you found that you want to see even more tips other than what Stacey and I have shared today, go ahead and take a look at that document. And then lastly, I want to point you to joining our user community to connect with peers and subject matter experts here at SAP Concur to get your questions answered or even just to share best practices with other SAP Concur folks. So with that, Stacey and I want to say thank you so much, and we hope everyone has a great day.